Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have an awesome guest. His name is Ben Gilpin, and he's the superintendent over at Newaygo Public Schools in Newaygo, Michigan. And Ben, thank you so much, man, for sharing some time with us today.
Oh, I'm excited to be on with you, Mike. Appreciate the time just to connect with you and the audience and everybody in general, especially when it comes to these important topics. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And what was your journey like, Ben, to become the superintendent? That's such a big position. A lot of people look up to you for leadership and guidance. What was your journey like?
Well, I mean, and that's a good kind of start for us, right? Because obviously it was a journey. And for me, I can tell you, I went to college, and as a college student, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Shocker. And I changed majors 4 times. Shocker. And funny thing was, I went down to inner city Fort Wayne. And in inner city Fort Wayne, I had a great experience with a shop class teacher.
Hmm.
And it was in that moment when I was in his classroom that I realized I wanted to be an educator.
Hmm.
And from there on, I became an elementary teacher. I taught fifth grade, and I taught at the school that I was a student.
Hmm.
So for anyone out there that they've been pulled to stay close to home, that was where I once was, and spent nearly a decade as a fifth grade teacher and took on several different roles. Really tried to serve the community that I grew up in as well. Um, after about 6, 7 years, I got my master's, and at that point, I started looking for potentially what would be next. And I had great advice from my friend Jimmy Casas, and Jimmy said to me, "The best time to look is when you're happy."
Hmm.
And I was like, "You're kidding me?" And he said, "Oh, nope, absolutely, you got nothing to lose."
Hmm.
And so at that point, I started dipping my toe in the water for administrative positions, and I put my resume and stuff, and I interviewed for a principalship about 15 miles from my district in a completely different district. And good fortune had it, I landed at Warner Elementary in Spring Arbor, Michigan, and I was there for 13 years. I got started working on my associates um, and my ed leadership at Eastern Michigan University. Things were going really super well at Warner Elementary, and we were changing culture, and I felt like we were positively changing lives. We had put in mindfulness. We were seeing so much growth in our students. Putting having conversations about a school within a school. I was so energized around the staff, the community, the kids. Um, and at the same time, all that was going on, my youngest was in school as well. My oldest was getting ready to graduate, but my youngest was in school, and I was starting to think about what could be next.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, COVID hit.
Hmm.
So it was really important for me to stay with my people
Hmm.
throughout the pandemic. And then my youngest graduated from high school, and I felt like I had the ability to go anywhere. And so we'd gotten through the pandemic. My kids graduated, and I started putting my name in the ring for some superintendencies. But here's the thing that I would tell you about that. I was looking for something where um, I could be involved. I was not looking for a quote unquote mega district.
Hmm.
I was looking for something that kind of fit what I was looking for. And so Newaygo became open, and there's roughly 1,500 students up here, rural Michigan, and I knew that there was a lot of opportunities. So I put my name in the ring, and lo and behold, here I am, and this is year 2. My family's moved up here. My youngest is now in college, and we're loving life on the river and embracing the opportunities here in a brand new place and in a brand new district.
I love that, Ben. That's such a cool story, and it makes sense now why we connected because you were already spreading so much mental health. you noticed it long before the pandemic, and now superintendents and all of us, the world in general, have realized, wow, kids are really struggling. This is real. Um, but you were already at it before COVID hit. And this is for anyone watching now, this is year 2024. This is not 2020. So, you are already doing the work of mental health support within your schools and emotional support. And that's awesome. So that's, which kind of leads really organically into the next question, Ben. When you were K-12, was there anything that you may have struggled with emotionally? For me, I was bullied. I had depression, anxiety. It was, even in third grade. So, was there anything that you kind of went through?
Yeah, so I think there's multiple layers to this. So Mike, as a student,
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, and this may surprise people, but I did not enjoy school. Uh, it was a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
I loved sports, and that basically pulled me through school in a lot of ways, but I just did not love school. I was a clock watcher. I did enough to stay eligible. I was like a B minus C plus student, just trying enough to get by. I did connect with a handful of teachers, and I'm grateful for those connections because they really prioritize the relationship. But I did not love school, and so that's like facet number one, which I'll go back to in a minute. But then facet number two is a dad. As a dad, my oldest son is on the spectrum, and having a son with autism, and seeing him navigate the K-12 world. There's a question I asked all the time. How much should my son conform to education, and how much should education conform to my son? And so that's facet number two, is dealing with it as a dad. But then the third one is, even as an educator now, I mean, and probably I would tell you, quite frankly, most people don't know this about me, but I know that there's been a stretch of time, and I see a therapist, and I work on my own mental health. I was actually diagnosed with functional depression several years ago. And functional depression sounds terrible. At the end of the day, though, functional depression is, how to function. And so you can put on this brave face day in and day out. And thank goodness for therapy, and thank goodness for the ability to be vulnerable and be able to talk to people, and just be open about, hey, you know what? Everybody is dealing with something. And so, as you asked the question, Mike, about, growing up, for me, there's three phases to it. There's my own journey as a student,
Mm-hmm.
there's my journey as a dad, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's my journey as an educator myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so the mental health piece is critically important. But I can't necessarily point to just one facet. I have to look at all three of them for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's multifaceted, and actually, I don't know if you can hear the jets. I'll probably cut it right here. I live right by a naval base, so the Air Force, they're right here. It's like Tom Cruise is flying over every day. The
That's awesome.
jets.
It gives it that authenticity.
Yeah, yeah. But I do I really appreciate everything you shared, Ben, because in a lot of ways we're pretty similar. Um, that school was a challenge for me as well. It was sports that helped me. I would get up and look forward to going to school. For track, I pole vaulted, and it just really got me out of bed. And then when it wasn't track season, at least I had band. I had, guitar. I was like, okay, there's music and sports, and that helped me go to school. So I understand where you're coming from, and then also with your son, one of my best friends in California, he is on the spectrum as well. He has autism, so it's really pretty profound to hear your take as a father with your son. And does school conform to him, or does he conform to school? That's a really good question. And just out of curiosity, how did that all play out? Did school kind of
Yep.
bend a little bit to him, and did he bend a little? Did they both a little bending, or how did that play out?
And great question. I would say there were certain teachers.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain teachers that were just flat out amazing.
Mm,
Um, I look at a teacher for him in the fifth grade, Mr. Struck,
mm,
amazing. And it was all about the relationship. It was all about meeting him where he was at and taking him as far as he could. But then the one that really probably turned the tables for him in such a positive way is he got involved in a robotics program, FIRST
mm,
Robotics,
mm,
and his teacher, Mr. Riedemann,
mm,
uh, was I forever I will call him a savior.
mm,
Um, because high school can be very challenging, especially when you have some social anxiety pieces. And Mr. Riedemann, I just think was a lifeline for him.
mm,
Um, my oldest did go on to college. College didn't necessarily stick.
mm,
I will say though, I can't give him, I can't be hard on him because he went to college during COVID.
mm,
And
mm,
so he was when you have social anxiety and you also are some of your classes are in a screen and some are not. That just was a very challenging part. A
mm,
little over a year and a half in, we just could tell it wasn't working out for him. And so he's working now and he's got a job and he, in his first year on the job, he's missed work one day. And typically if we go to work, that means we like work.
yeah, that's
So that's a
amazing.
good thing. And
That,
he's doing well. I can tell you this though, going back to your original, how much does school conform and how much does he need to conform to school? It's a very challenging question. And I would simply say that I think the answer is a little bit of both.
mm,
Um, and I know that that's might sound like an easy answer for people to hear. Um, but what I will tell you is that what I saw is if the educational system was able to meet him where he was, he would then come along.
mm,
But if the educational system said you have to get here,
mm,
it would be much harder.
yeah,
So it was a balance, but it typically needed to start with the educational system.
mm.
If
That
that
makes sense.
answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, and that makes perfect sense. And I would say I venture to say for students that are on the spectrum and students that aren't, that may just have, there's so many challenges that we face. Maybe attention deficit. I had ADD for sure. That was really difficult to focus. So just in general, maybe if the school bends just a little, then the student will bend back and they can work together. And then, I love how you shared that you're seeing someone for your own mental health benefits, seeing a counselor. That's awesome. I've seen them off and on my whole life. And it's so stigmatized, right? Like, ooh, why are you going? What's wrong with you? Nothing. I just want to be healthy. And it's just like working out at the gym for our muscles. We're working out our thoughts, right? What's going on inside. And without the right tools, we're just swimming in a big ocean with huge 40-foot waves, and or it's like the hurricane they're having in Florida. It's like someone walking out in the street, 150-mile-per-hour winds. So the therapist puts like a nice cone around and blocks the wind, and we get to think clearly. So I commend you for sharing that, because that's more people um, need to just share. The whole thing's a relationship, right? Like you said, with your son and the teacher, and a relationship with all of us. Just it's okay. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to get help.
At the same time, I'm a big Brene Brown fan.
Hmm.
What I would tell you is that somewhere along the line, people have thought it's a weakness
Mm,
to get help, right?
right, right.
And I actually would say I think it's the opposite. I think it takes courage to say, hey,
Absolutely.
I would like to talk to someone. I'd like to be healthier. For me, it's always about trying. I'm in pursuit to be the best version of myself.
Right. Amen
And
to that. Amen.
and I believe that I become closer to the best version of myself when I continue to work on myself.
100%. Amen. Yeah, to be all of us, myself included, to striving to be physically healthier. Sometimes I eat horrible stuff, lots of donuts, lots of ice cream, lots of sugary coffee, but I'm trying. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? We're all working on that, and they all go together. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ben. That was awesome. And in your as the superintendent at your district, what are some of the things, in a perfect world you'd like to see more of, maybe more support for the students, um, or what's already working well? Most superintendents are all saying the same thing. We have the counselors, we have the psychologists, we have programs, but it's still not enough. So we're doing what we can, but there's a gap. Like, have you noticed, what's the gap? And in a perfect world, what would you like to see more of?
Well, so this year, our K-8,
Mm-hmm.
we did it. We've done the training, and we are in the midst of being a Capturing Kids' Hearts
Oh,
school.
cool, cool.
And I can tell you that what I love about that, and I know it's a quote unquote program,
Mm-hmm.
but what I love about it is it puts the relationship first. And and here's the other thing, it puts the relationship first, but also still has a bar of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is the thing. This is where sometimes I feel like in our society, when people struggle, and everybody struggles in some way, shape, or form, that we want to give grace, we want to give second chances, we want to be understanding and empathetic, and all those are good things. But the other thing that I do believe is, as a society, we still have to be accountable,
Mm-hmm.
to be accountable for
Mm-hmm.
our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I look at, if we give people carte blanche and let them do whatever they wish, I don't think that's going to produce the society that we're all looking for.
Mm-mm.
At the same time, I don't necessarily think we need to have the hammer.
Right.
So I've really enjoyed seeing Capturing Kids' Hearts at work, and I'm a believer, and I love the program because you create a social contract, and you develop those one-on-one conversations, you develop those chances for kids to be heard, to be seen, to connect with the adults. Every single student should connect with an adult in the school system. If we have a student that doesn't have a connection, we have a problem.
Right.
And so I mean, obviously, having more counselors, having more interventionists, having more, whether it be therapy dogs, whatever it happens to be. I mean, you could blow the lid off of it and have as many as possible, but really it comes down to, for me, it's all about quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to have quality adults with quality relationships, rather than just continuing to throw adults at it that don't necessarily have a focus on quality interactions.
Right.
And
Right.
so here at Nuevo, the focus is on every student matters, every student, every single day. And our theme is making a difference one student at a time.
Mm.
And together we roar. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
all about that, creating that culture, creating that mentality that we're here for kids, we're here to support each other. And the one that came up this year, since we're the Nuevo Lions,
Mm.
our little tagline is, um, every lion matters,
Mm.
every roar counts.
Mm.
And so here's the problem that I think too often happens in education. You develop these taglines, you develop these phrases, you develop these visions, but then you don't continue to visit it time after time after time, and it just becomes words on a wall.
Right.
The more you put it in front of people, the more you live your purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, love it. I love it. I love what you guys are doing. I love that you're focusing on relationships, having pairing every student with an adult and having those quality relationships that they're really listening. They feel seen, heard, valued, and loved. And that's paramount for kids thriving. And not only internally, but as in school and then beyond. So that's great. And if you have any parting words or words of wisdom or encouragement, what would you share?
You know, I I would say to people that, the one thing when it comes to whether it's ourselves or it's in the educational system, too often, too often I feel as though I see people that try to go it alone.
Mm,
And I can tell you this, I know that the best version of me is when I work with others, when I have a conversation with my therapist, when I collaborate with my administrative team, when I listen to students in my advisory council, when I go to teachers and have one-on-one conversations. When I'm doing all those things, I know I'm better. But at the same time, and I would press into any parents or educators that are listening to this, the number one thing that is going to help students succeed is if there's a partnership between home and school.
Mm,
If there's a true partnership there, I
mm,
will promise the student is the one that's going to win.
mm-hmm.
And too often I feel like we end up there's an undertone. There's a possibly some adversity or even they're adversarial. It doesn't have to be. Developing that partnership is what's going to ultimately, at the end of the day, whether it's academically, socially, emotionally, mental health wise, that's what's going to help students the most, developing that partnership.
Love it. Yep, 100% agree. Ben, thank you so much for carving out time for us today and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks again, Mike. Appreciate it.